Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today is day 8 of PHP in DDCDP23. Actually, it is DDCDP23 because we started this program in 2023, but it has been long enough and we are now in 2024, even September of 2024. So far, whichever PHP we have done to build that blog website, that was all spaghetti code, or we can call it if you are students, so predominantly and most probably you will start with code which we already have written, basic PHP code. Many call it procedural PHP, but now it's time to move on and we will start with object-oriented programming in PHP, which is used by all of the major PHP frameworks. And if you have to be improving your careers in PHP, so this is very important, and in Drupal also, because Drupal is in Symfony, and also the Drupal code, its own code as well, is in OOP structure. So we need to learn all this. The things we will be covering today is contains classes, objects, what are constructors, methods and properties, and constants. Also visibility, inheritance, abstract classes, interfaces, autoloading of classes, and if we have time we will cover dependency injection as well. So let's dive in. One of the advantages of object-oriented PHP is code organization as well as extensibility. You can write better code if you start using object-oriented PHP. And in fact, if you are a professional programmer, it's highly likely that you need to learn the principles of object-oriented programming and why you need object-oriented programming. So you can have your own research about the topic, but we will dive in and we'll try this lecture to be practical as we can. So let's start. I already have a new website ready locally, a project I should say, and it has currently just one index.php file, and we are using DDEV environment for it. So maybe some other day we will demo how to install DDEV on Mac, but that is just very easy. You can follow some tutorial on YouTube yourself as well. DDEV is a Docker based environment where you can have your PHP running, and for Drupal also we will be using DDEV. That's why we are also using DDEV right from the start here while we are doing object-oriented programming in PHP. So this is just plain HTML file at the moment, and we have named it index.php just like we always have. So we'll write our first class. So it's always good practice to have your classes in a folder. So we will call that folder source src, and this is also a naming convention for a lot of frameworks as well. So if you are placing your classes, these are placed in something like source. Here I will create a file. For example, let us be playing with some CSS outputs of Tailwind, so that this demo of object-oriented programming is totally practical for you. I will create a file called css.php in source directory. One thing, in index.php I already have included Tailwind CSS, so we'll be adding some classes, Tailwind classes, via PHP, and these classes in PHP. Okay, so I have already included the CDN link for Tailwind CSS, so that if we have to use some Tailwind classes, they take effect. It will be just basic demo of how we can use object-oriented programming in PHP to use some output which contains some Tailwind CSS classes. So as I said, we should have our classes in src folder, and this is one of the norms in PHP and many of modern frameworks. Classes are placed in src folder, which stands for source. So each PHP class, we can have many classes in same PHP file, but again this is custom and it has a lot of advantages also, which we will look ahead. All classes should be in one file. So I already have created a file named css.php. okay, so there should be one class per file, and the name of the file should also be the same. It can be different, but it's good practice to have the same name, and it has advantages as well. We will look see that in future. So how a class is written in PHP? First, PHP tags. Again, as I said, we can have more than one PHP classes in the same file, but this is just customary to place one class per file. So it starts with class keyword, then the name of the class. So it's your editor will most probably automatically ask you to give the class name and then the curly braces. So this is what a class should be, right? Class CSS, and then we can have in how is a class instantiated, just like in JavaScript. Yeah, so I already have index.php with the, if for example, if at the top of the page I have to create a new class, so I will assign it to a variable. Maybe CSS is the variable name is equal to new CSS class. You can have it like this, but also you can have it like this. If you use constructor, we will learn that. Then you must use these small brackets. Otherwise, you can use just the name of the class like this as well. But it's good if you use these small brackets. Okay. So CSS is equal to new CSS. That's how you instantiate an object of a class. Now this variable will be an object of which class? This class. But if you run this code, if I just run this code, so it gives me an error, and if you can guess it right, uncaught error, class CSS not found in this, because we are instantiating, we are initializing this class, or we are creating an object of this class in index.php, and the file is in source css.php. So what your native natural guess is, what should we do?
Import that.
Exactly, import that. So we can use require name of the folder which is source, and then this, and now if you refresh the page, there won't be any error. Alright, because now it has access to that class. Okay, coming back to the class, whatever is inside the class as variables, we call them properties. So for example, markup, yeah, or attributes. So if this is a variable, and we will make it public markup equals, we will initialize this markup as just string. Okay, so we have created a variable, for example markup, and use public in front before it. This means that this variable can be accessed from outside the class in the object. For example, here, just like in JavaScript, we use variable name, class name dot variable name. So here in PHP, what can we do? We will use this CSS, and then this arrow, and the name of the variable or method or whatever. If it is a method, which is a function actually, then we will use this. Otherwise, this means the variable. Okay, so if I just print it for now, it is right now empty because we have assigned this as this. For example, if I just make it hello PHP classes, so if I access this now, what should be the output? Hello PHP classes, because now we are accessing that property. So this is a PHP class CSS, and it has one variable. We call it property in classes. Okay, so it has one public property, hello PHP classes. So once we initialize the class, how we do it? With the new keyword and assign it to a PHP variable. So now this PHP variable is an object of which type? This class type. So this is the blueprint, this is the sample, and this is its object. So we can have more than one initializations. For example, CSS2 is equal to new CSS, like this. $CSS3 equals new CSS. All of these are now different objects but of the same class. It will have properties and methods of this class, functionality of this class, each of these variables. These are different objects but of the same class. Okay, in the class, this public means that this variable or this property can be accessed from outside the class. Okay, but if we make it private like this, this is known as visibility operators in classes. One is public, then this one is private. And if we refresh the page, what do you expect? Some error. Uncaught error, cannot access private property. So once the property becomes private in classes, it cannot be accessed from outside the class or from the object variable. So for example, this code print CSS markup, because this markup is now a private variable inside the class. That's why it cannot be accessed from outside the class or from the object actually. But now, for now, we will make it back to public. Okay, next, this is a method, and then we can have a public, just like any function in PHP or JavaScript. So we will make a function and we will call it output markup, for example this. So the name of the function is output markup, and that's it. Here we will just print, I want to print this markup actually. Okay, the markup which is inside the CSS class. So in order to access it from the class, within the class, any function or method, we will use this colon markup. Okay, what does this mean? If for example I have to access this inside this function, this method, so then you will have to use $this and markup. And now we can output this function, we can run this function from outside the wherever we have created the class. So if I just comment out the print markup, here $CSS output markup, and notice we are running it with the brackets because this is a function. So this is the object we have created, and we can now run this method. So what should be the output of this? It will output this hello PHP classes for us. So if you refresh the page, it will be the same. CSS output markup, and why is it not printing it? Okay, probably we didn't save it. Okay, it's now printing it. The next thing is, if you notice, we are making this markup hard coded. Like it is within the class, we have defined this markup. We want to make it dynamic. And as soon as a new class is initialized, it should have its own markup. Okay. So for example, these are three separate objects. Right now, the first one is CSS, the second one is CSS2, and this is 3. All of these have the same hello PHP classes markup because we have made it this hard coded. So what we can do is, we can just remove this for now, and we can just initialize, create a variable which is going to be a public variable and its markup. Okay. In the class, we have changed this to markup. Now there is a public function underscore construct, like this. So this function underscore construct is run as soon as a class is initialized. So it is basically used for the code. Once you need to initialize something, you should put that code here. So for example, we need to initialize this markup variable, this markup method, when a new class is created. So here, what can we do? As I said, how can we access this from a function within the class? This dot markup equals, this function will have a parameter. We can call it whatever. So this dot markup is equal to markup. What does this mean? The constructor will have this, and we will be assigning whatever is passed to the constructor to this property markup. Okay. Now when the class is, if we now run it, do you expect any errors?
Because we are not passing the argument.
Exactly. Even your editor will be showing something like this. There are these errors. But if I refresh the page for now, so uncaught argument count error. Too few arguments to function CSS this. So what we can do is, we should pass something here as a string. Okay. So hello for CSS. This one should have hello for CSS 2, sorry, and this one should be hello for CSS 3. Now we have passed a starting property value as soon as we are creating the class. So while creating the class, we pass that string, and in the class it will be, in the object it will be actually assigned to this markup variable. So whatever is passed to it, it will be that variable. So for example, now if I print CSS output markup this, and then CSS2 markup, and between them we need to have BR. BR is used for line break. Okay, so what are you expecting? It will be 2 lines. The first one will be outputting its variable. The second one will be object will be outputting its variable. Okay, so now you can note the advantage of classes. This variable is now different for the class, but this output function, this function is outputting whatever is that variable. Okay, so whatever we are passing to it, it is being output by this function method and this method. So the method is the same, but the variables, because of these different arguments, is different now. Is this clear? So we have covered classes, objects, constructor, methods, and property. So the variable we call in normal PHP, it is property, and the function becomes method. For visibility, we already have known the two things, public and private. Okay, so functions can also be private. For example, if I change this function to private, now if we access it from outside because now we are accessing it here from here outside the class, from the object itself, so we will be having errors. We can't access it from outside the class, but within the class, this private means it can be accessed within the class. So if I create another function, public function test, for example, whatever it is, so now this function, private function, output markup can be accessed from within the class like this. It can be accessed from within the class, okay, but not from outside the class, because this function is private. So this is the difference. And we will make it public again. Now let us have an example of what inheritance can be. So the markup is automatic now. We are assigning it anything which is being passed to the constructor. Now let me create another variable, which is, maybe we call it Tailwind classes. This is going to be an array, public Tailwind classes. So we can have something inside this also, just like any variable can have anything in PHP. So this is a class variable, something within the class, which is known as property, and it is an array. So we can have some Tailwind classes here. So text/4excel, for example. Sorry, this is a class which is Tailwind class for font sizes. So text/4excel. We can have other values also, because this is array. So for example, if I need to have some padding, what I will do is p something, p-8 or something like this. Okay, so the public property of Tailwind classes will have CSS classes, Tailwind CSS classes. Now I need to have output markup. I need to wrap something like this, just not the markup. The return should not be just the markup, but for example a div and then a closing div and here it should have what, this dot markup, okay, and it will surround it with what, these two classes, okay. So how can we convert these two classes to a string which we can use here at class is equal to, you can have concatenation like this. Here we need to have these text dash 4xl and p dash 8, something like this, okay. But we need to make this get this from this array. So how can we do it?
Just use the variable.
This variable, this is not, this is array actually. Array cannot be converted to string directly. Implode function, implode or explode, we get confused with it. But implode, if I just use implode, we need to have maybe concatenation. Just setting up concatenation variables and this dot here we need to implode and then the string operator, separator, and then the array, okay. So we need to have space and then what should I use here? Just this or something else? Good. This Tailwind. Notice once you use this, then you don't have to use $sign with the this. Okay. Now if I refresh the page, so you can see there is padding also, and if I inspect, you can see div class is equal to this, hello for this, and div. So now if I need to add other classes to it, what can we do? We will just add classes to the array. For example, text color, text dash red dash 400, something like this, or font dash. What's the class for? Now the color is red. Okay, but normally in object-oriented programming you will see some utility classes, because this is something, this is native PHP function, but we can create a wrapper around it just for the demo purpose for now. So we will move this code to that class and one of its functions, okay. So for this purpose, in the source directory we will create another class and we will call it utility.php. Utility.php. Here we will create a PHP tag and then class utility, and that's it. Here we need to have a function, public function, and you will call it Tailwind. And for naming convention of classes methods, we have small word, then if it has secondary, so this is camel case, Tailwind to CSS to string, or maybe Tailwind array to string. It's a long name but good enough. Okay, the function name is public function tailwind array to string, and it will be passed what? An array. $sign array will be passed to it. So here what we can do, we can just copy that code quickly, implode, or maybe just we can write it quickly. So implode whatever is should be the, so it's just space and then the array which is being passed to the function. That's it. Okay, so this is the function, public function tailwind array to string array. Array is passed to it, and we are using the implode function, and we will just return the string. This will return the string. Now just repeat, we created a file in the source directory and called it utility.php. Utility is a new class. It has a method called tailwind array to string. We pass an array to it, and array is being returned as string, whatever is the string. Okay, so here one thing we can do is inside this function output where we are using implode here. We are using implode here. So what we can do is we can use that class here. So for example, utility is a variable which will be the object of the class, is equal to new utility class, like this. Then utility, what's the name of the function? Tailwind to string. Here we will pass some array, and the array is this dot tailwind classes, like this, and that's it. Okay, we can do this, and it will return us a string. $string is equal to this. So here what will we use now? Just the string, like this. This will totally work. Okay, this will totally work, but still it has a problem. Anybody? Let me just refresh the page. Class utility not found. Why? Because we are not importing the utility class, and here it is assuming that the class should be here in css.php. If I import it to this, will it resolve it? The main okay, it got resolved because now the CSS file already has been imported, and we are now importing the utility class, and it gets known to the CSS file. So this is just extra work to use a function. This is extra work because wherever we will be using this function, first we will be creating the object of the class like this, utility new utility, and then we will be using it. Okay, so what we can do is we can use static property or methods in classes also. Static. So what are static properties and methods? If I come to utility class here we can use public function tailwind array to this. We'll just add one keyword with this, public static function. What? Public static function. The functionality of the method will be just the same, public static function. And then we can come back to the CSS class, and here if you remember we just used new with the utility to instantiate the class, but we won't do that now. And string is equal to, so this is not going to work now. We will just use the name of the class. What is it is utility, and then 2 double colons like this. So once you make a property or method static, you don't need to initialize that class. Okay, we can directly use it. We can use directly we can directly use that class to access its property or method, and those properties and methods should be static actually. So we don't need to initialize the utility class, we just can access its properties and methods directly via this is known as scope resolution operator also. But it means this, if you remember from the PDO, do you remember PDO? What was fetch assoc?
Fetch the element in associative array.
Yeah, so how was it being accessed?
PDO
double colon
and then fetches
first. Okay, so we were using it, if you remember, for one of the this. It was actually some constant in. We can get to constants also, but constants also are referred like this, or properties are accessed with these two dots. Is this clear? What is static property or method? Okay. Okay. So if you remember, with the CSS class, we have all the properties or methods, like, for example, this is public markup, public Tailwind CSS, public function. All of these are public properties, and normal, they are not static properties. So yeah, so they need to be initialized basically. The objects created of these initializations will have these properties. So now the utility class, we also had it. If I remove the static class, then also we need to initialize the utility class to access this function. Okay, but it will be extra work initializing a class just for to use its function. So what we can do is we can make the function or property static like this. Now it doesn't need initialization, we can directly use it like this, and even your editor will have a different color to it, like here it is being shown as green at the moment. So we can directly access any property or method via this if the method or property is static. One thing we should, if I come to utility classes, for example, if I create a, or even from the CSS class, if at the top of the page I need some constant. And what is a constant? Just like variables value can be changed, altered, but constant, they are not altered, they have a constant value. So for example, constant, and you can have any name like this for constant, but the custom is to have it fetch underscore assoc, all in capital. Okay, so constant fetch assoc equals some string whatever, associative array or something like this, anything we can have, or even you can have. Okay, so const fetch assoc associative array. Okay, so what does this fetch assoc now means? That this is a constant, it is not going to change. So if I have to access it, maybe for example, let us have it padding or some padding, okay, capital padding. Const padding is equal to some p dash 16. So we have defined a constant which is called padding and its value is p dash 16. Let us remove it from here. Okay, so I want to add this padding to the string created from the function for classes. Okay, so how can we do it? I will concatenate it, maybe some space first and then another dot, and here I want to use the padding constant like this. Do you think this will have be working? Because the name of the constant is padding.
Remove one Tailwind array string.
Hmm?
Remove one Tailwind array to string.
Why?
So if above the padding line.
This one? Tailwind.
Yes, sir. It is printed 2 times. Sir.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so do you think this will be working if I refresh the page? Undefined constant padding. Okay, because we are in the same class inside a method and the padding has been defined here. So in order to access a constant from within the class, we use self. So self, small letter self, and then again the double colon, this self padding. Now if you refresh the page, we have some extra padding, you can see, because PB16 has been applied now. This is P16. Okay. This is all new and tricky, but once you do some practice, you will get to know what we are doing. Okay, so we can have static properties also from a class, in a class. So for example, okay, let us we already have created this public static count variable, and which has a default value of 0. So now I just need to access this. In order to access some variable, what you do is you use this something, okay? But from outside the class, for example, I need to print this static variable. So what I can do is print name of the class CSS double colon and this count variable. Notice one thing, dollar has to be used with this, unlike this where we don't use dollars for accessing properties. With accessing static properties, we do need to use the dollar and count. Now if I just access the page, are we printing it? CSS count public static count is equal to 0. Is this maybe yes, maybe we're not seeing it. Okay, this is because we have zoomed it, it was not visible actually. So you can access static properties with this scope resolution operator. The newer version of PHP, I think, lets you print it with the object as well. So for example, CSS colon count. So it's the same. In older versions that was probably not allowed, but now you can access it with the object as well. But we will try to use it, if at all we have to, with the CSS class. Okay, now we already have started this application, but I have written some notes so that we can easily create a mini application which will be using different Tailwind classes to demonstrate a lot of the OOP concepts we'll be studying in this course. So let me just move to that text. We will be continuing building this application. I already have done some parts of it. For example, create a PHP class and name it CSS. We already have done it, which will accept some markup. So this class, this is what I mean, it accepts some markup. So we already have done this, and this markup is being accepted because of this constructor method, which accepts the parameter markup. Okay, so we already have done this. Then this class will have a constant holding a Tailwind CSS class used for default padding of the div. So this CSS class already have a constant which we have created, and its name is padding, and it holds some default padding for the class. So we already have done this. The next step is we are going to output that markup enclosed in divs by first saving this div based markup in a variable named final markup. This is what we haven't yet done because it has some advantages. So let's do it first. We are right now directly outputting it. So right now the function is output markup. What this does is this creates a string of the Tailwind CSS classes we have, these classes, and then wraps it with the div and adds the padding and outputs it, directly prints it. But we are not going to print it because it has a reason. We will let us change its output markup to maybe prepare markup, and we will create a public variable here and call it final markup is equal to, we will initialize it with empty for now, but once it prepares markup, so we will use this final markup equals this. Is this fine?
Yes.
So this prepare markup function or you can call it method prepares this output, whatever it is, and stores it in the final markup variable. So initially the markup is empty, but now it is this. Now if I need to render this markup, for that I just need to have another function, public function render. Normally the render function is used. So what will this do? Because the markup is now in the final markup variable, so we will just print this dot final markup, whatever it is. Okay, so in the index.php, well, we are outputting this output markup because the name of the function has changed. We will use prepare markup. So what prepare markup will do? It will store that markup in the variable inside.
Yes, sir.
And then what we can do afterwards, when we know the variable has been saved, what we will do, now we have created a function render. We will call the render method. Let us now remove this print this. Okay, so what the render method will do, it will print that markup for us, and we see no change because that markup is now being printed for us by the render markup. It has an advantage, it will be clear once we move on. Okay, so if I go to that text again, we are going to output the markup enclosed in this by first saving this div base markup in a variable named final markup, and then we have created a render function also. This CSS PHP class will have a render method which will output this final markup variable. So do you think we have done this now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is also, let us make all of these italic so that we know we have done this. How to change it? Okay, so these have been done. Now we will create another class which extends this CSS class and call it containered class. Okay, we will create another class which extends this CSS class and call it this. This class will wrap the entire final markup in a Tailwind container class and output it via the parent rendered method. Let me read this again. This class will wrap the entire final markup in a Tailwind container class div and output it via the parent render method. Okay, let's do it. So we will create a new class. This is source directory, new file. We'll call it containered class.php. So here we will have PHP opening, and then the name of the class should be the same as the file name. Okay, so class, container class, and for now I can just do this and say I need exactly the same functionality from the CSS the PHP class. Okay, so I will, for example, I will just copy all the stuff from this and maybe just paste it here, and just the name of the class will be containered class. Okay, container or containered. Okay, containered class. So this is exactly now the copy of css.php, and here we will create another method, public function wrap output or whatever in container, wrap output in container. Okay, so public function wrap output in container. So what this will do, anybody?
This will wrap the whole content inside this container.
Yeah, so that's why we created the final markup variable. So once we have the final markup variable from the prepared markup, we will do this again, this dot final markup, because we will be overriding it. Okay, is equal to what? Div class is equal to, what is it? Container and mx-auto to center it also, dot, and then the closing div like this. And here what should we have? This final markup again, because this method will create the final markup. Here it is being created, and this final markup is again being surrounded by the container. Okay, so what this wrap output in container means, function will do, what is the problem?
A single quote at
the end of table.
Okay, so what this function will do, this will wrap whatever is the final markup, because we paste it inside the final markup. That's why now we will it is easy for us to wrap it again. And now what we'll do, the next step is, here we will create a new CSS, new obj or object or whatever is equal to new, which class? Container class. And here it will have a markup as well. So for example, I will just pass it, I am from container class, whatever. Now you tell me what is going to be the next. We will use the prepare markup function, so that the first div is surrounded by the classes. So $sign CSS, sorry, new object and prepare markup. So it will save this code, this one, div class is equal to string self padding and whatever into the final markup, this variable. And the next step is
new OBJ.
the next is we need to, if we call the render directly here, so it will be rendering it like previously. But that's why the whole notion of creating this class was to add this extra function to the class. So we will first call this function so that we surround this with a wrapper div, this output with a wrapper div. So the next will be new object wrap output in container. That's it. So this will do an external div with a class of container and MX auto. That's it. And what is going to be the final method? The render one. So just a recap, this is similar to the CSS one. Here we need to wrap the prepared markup, the final markup into the div container MX auto, because this is the function, this one. So it will be working now. If I refresh the page, what is now the problem? Not found in index.php. So what we need to do? Include it, or require, you can call it, require .src / container class.php and then this. So if I zoom it out like this, you can see this is inside a container now, because it is centered. And if I inspect it, so the container MX auto is there, but there is some problem with the markup. The initial markup has not been prepare markup. Is there any prepare markup? Okay, prepare markup. And then wrap markup. It is not taking these classes actually. Tailwind classes, text this and this. typical markup. Let me just check if you can debug. var underscore dump. If you just new object, after this this is from container class, so it is being saved. Def class is equal to is there in final markup, so maybe we are doing something wrong after the final markup. The next is this one. Now div class equal to container mx auto. Okay, we are not closing the div, if you see. So that's how you can debug. If I just zoom it in, you can see we are not closing the container mx auto div. That's why it's being poisoned, I should say. So what we can do is we can go to the container class, and here you can see we are not going to we are not closing the closing div tag. Now if we refresh, so hopefully everything is fine, and I will just comment out these var dumps. So you can always use PHP's var dumps to check how your variables are behaving. So now this one is in center, and if we inspect it, you can see it is being read by the container class of mx auto. Is this clear? But for example, I now need to change in the parent class. I need to change the padding to 8 for some reason. Okay, what should I do next so that it takes effect in the container as well? Here the padding is now 8, but here it is 4. What should I do? Should I change the value here as well? 8. In fact, this is not the way how to copy a class. Okay, that's why something called inheritance exists in programming. Okay, if you examine these two classes, CSS and container, both have exactly the same functionality, with just a new addition in the container class, which is this wrap output in container. So rather than copying, this function is exactly like the CSS one, no difference at all. Similarly, even these variables are all the same. So what we should have done is we should have extended. This is something called extension, or to extend a class. So we should have extended this CSS class. All of the functionality would have come in container class with just this addition of wrap output in container. So this is what we need to do next. We will delete all the functionality we already have in the container class, and even the render function, because it is also there. And here we will just leave it the extra method from the css.php, and in the start of the class we will use the extends keyword. And which class it is going to extend? The CSS one. So with these two words, all the functionality of the CSS class will now be inside this class as well, the container class. And the only difference is this. So this is not any code repetition here. There is no code repetition here. We have saved a lot of reuse of code. We have refactored it, And as I said, if I needed to change the padding to 8, so now even in the container class padding will be 8. We will have to change things just once. And if we refresh the page, nothing has changed. Functionality is still there. We don't need to change anything in the index.php. We can, because this prepared markup is not in the container class, but now it is extending the CSS class. That's why we can access this prepare markup from the parent class, and similarly the render, which is also in the parent class. So that's how we extend a class. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So we have done this one as well. Italic. Okay, now we will create another PHP class which extends this CSS class, the parent one, intended to add borders, left, right, top, bottom to the final markup. This class will use interfaces. So what is interfaces? How many of you have ever heard of interfaces? What does an interface do?
It's an interface, it's the design. It's like a constructor function.
Okay, let us do it.
It's same like constructor, but functionality is different.
Okay, so we now need to create another class, and for that purpose with an extra functionality, just extra functionality, so that we can add borders, left, right, top and bottom borders to the markup, the initial markup, not the container one. Okay, so let us create a file we will call it
It is same like class,
kind of,
but with the name of interface.
yeah. I'm just going to explain it now. So we'll create a class and call it what can we call it? I think I have written it somewhere. Okay, let us give it some name, whatever it is. So the purpose of this class is to give borders to, so we can call it borders maker. What? Class border maker extends, which class it should extend? CSS, so that all the functionality of the CSS class comes into this one, and we will rename it to border maker borders maker dot php. Okay. So border maker extends CSS, and if we just call new on this border maker, it will be exactly like the CSS class, no changes in it. So here we will create for example, I need to add the left border. Okay, function create public function add left border, public function add left border. So in this borders maker, in this borders maker class we are adding a public property and naming it, public method, naming it add left border. How do you think we should be adding, why are we using Tailwind classes? So that we can easily add some CSS properties to the markups. What do you think should be the syntax here so that we can add border, left border to the, for left border, by the way, the class is border dash L dash say 4 or 2 or whatever. Okay, so if I just, what should we do, how can we add class to, and let me go to the markup again. If this is the markup, we want to add the class, so we already have these classes, so where should it go so that the border can be added? That's the power of arrays. That's why we are using arrays, and we have added this array of Tailwind classes already. So how can we do it? We can just add a class to this Tailwind array of left border, and because it is being rendered here automatically with the prepared markup, that class will be rendered along. So how to access that array? This dot Tailwind classes. And why is this accessible to us? Because we are extending the CSS classes. If we just remove this extends, this array won't be accessible then. And if I just do this, for example, and border dash L dash 4, for example, this one, what will this do? Is this good? Will it add this value to the array? Exactly. If we don't add these square brackets, it means this will add one more element to the array. But if we just use this, it will actually override that array and it will be just string. So we will add this to border this. Is this clear? Now if I just go to the home page again, and I will create a new, but before that we will require dot src slash borders maker.php. Now we can new it, we can create a new instance of it. So new borders equals new border maker, and because it is extending the CSS class, so it is expecting the markup. So I will make it I am coming from border maker class. That's it. Now it has, this value has been passed into it. What next should we do? We need to prepare markup. Sorry, we will call the method first, otherwise that class will not be added. New border dot, which one? Sorry, not dot, we are not in the JavaScript word now. It will be add left border, and what that is? Left, because we have hard coded it. This one. If I need to make it dynamic, what should I do? Exactly. So here we will pass it this, and here we will just use that border like this. And now here we need to dynamically send that border dash L dash. This is all basic stuff now, passing parameters to the function and using it. Okay, arguments and parameters and all. This is used in JavaScript as well as PHP in any programming language, so you should not be bothered about this now. So new borders, add left border, and what should be the border width? This. That's it. So now this class has been added to the this array, Tailwind CSS array. Okay, why? Because in borders maker we are adding this to the class. Now we will run which function? Prepare markup. What prepare markup does? It converts the classes in the Tailwind array to string and then assigns it, and with the self padding. That's it. So we will use the new borders, prepare marker. That's it. And then the last one is to render that. What the render function does, method does,
It will print
it will print it.
the final one.
Because if you see in the css.php, the render is the final markup is the variable with the markup, and it is being printed. Okay, so if I just print it,
Border, sir, pass the colors also. Border color.
okay, maybe
No, it will not.
let me just first check if there is that border dash L dash 4. It is there. Maybe it is because of the zooming. We just
Yes, sir. There it is.
we can.
Show
It should be some very light gray. That's why it's not visible. So if we change the border color, border dash, border color Tailwind,
yes. Border dash black. Black. Border dash black. It will works.
border dash black. Okay. And if I need to pass another class, I should be running this twice. Border dash black, because this will add another this class to the array. This will add this class to the array. So now there are two classes, and automatically that will be rendered.
Pass another variable.
Now this is actually there. It was before, maybe because by default it takes either white or gray. I don't remember it. So now we have a left border,
Yes.
right? But for, so if we just need left border, that's fine. We have created this class borders maker, but the purpose of this class was to have all the four borders. Okay, so maybe you want your developer to give all the four borders, and you only have, if I go to the borders maker class, we have just one function which adds the left border, and you want everybody to be obeying or the rule of the class to add all the four borders. Okay, that's now the problem with this class. Your junior developer only has added the left border, and you want all the four borders to be given. Otherwise this class will give error. This is where we need the interfaces. Interfaces means contracts or rules for a class. So we will create a new file, just like we create a class. We'll create a new file and we'll call it maybe we can start it with interface borders .php or borders interface. Let us call it borders interface.php, borders interface.php. Okay, you can call it maybe the agreement between the class, contract, or whatever. Okay, so here we, just like PHP classes, we will use interface keyword and then the name of the, and it should also be of the same name, just like the file name. Okay, so interface, this simple, nothing else. Here you will just define the functions to be used by the class, which must be implemented by the class. Just the names, no definitions, no implementation, sorry. It should not have any body. Okay, so for example, borders maker, we have add left border, so we will create four functions here. Public function abstract add left border, and it is passed a border class. Okay, so this is one. Then second, third, fourth. These are 4 functions. Now add right border, add top border, add bottom border, add bottom border. Okay, so this is that. It will have no body, this one. Even if you try to have some body like this, brackets, it will show you error even in your that there should be no implementation in the these brackets are not allowed in the interfaces. You just need to have names like this. So what does this all mean? This means that whichever class implements this interface should have all these functions. You are making it obligatory on the part of the class to have all these functions included. So if we come to the borders maker class now, and here border maker class extends CSS, and here at the end you will add implements. So you can call it implements what? The interface. Which interface? Which we just created, borders interface. That's it. Okay, so once this happens, there is an error in the editor you have, and if we just hover over it, what does it say? Classes are extending using the word extends. This defines the parent class. Class borders maker does not implement abstract methods. We only have so far implemented one of those 4 methods. These 3 are missing. You can see at the bottom function add these 3 are missing in the class. So if I just we are including classes, you require them to be used in the PHP source. This is normal stuff because we are using that interface, that's why you need that file. But if I just refresh the page, you can notice the error, and if I zoom it in, uncaught this interface, borders interface not found in, okay, borders interface not found in borders maker.php3. Why it is not found? Because this should be above. This is one of the reasons why we will have another topic as well in this class. Sorry, this interface, because it is being used implemented by the borders maker class, so it should be above the this. Okay, now the error has changed. What does it say? Class method contains 3 abstract methods and must therefore be declared abstract or implement the remaining methods. You must implement these methods now, which we haven't yet done. Okay, for example, there is a database class with a connection method, and somebody has used that database class and not used the connection method. If that connection is placed in the interface, so if somebody extends your class and implements that interface, so you must implement the connection method, for example. So now these 3 methods should be created as well in the class. Only then can this error go away. Got it? So we will just quickly copy these 4 functions and change it to right border. If I just refresh the page, how many errors now will be remaining? 2, because 2 have been implemented and 2 are remaining. And if I paste it again, and then now top border, how many errors will now be there? 1, just 1. And then the last one, top will be bottom. There are PHP applications. For example, in the item processor, if you just click on a class, it will just automatically implement all those, write all those functions for you, so you don't need to manually do it. Okay, but for now it's fine. So if I now just refresh the page, no, all the errors have gone. And now if I need to add the right border also, so what should I do? I will just call this function before the prepare markup, so that the array has all those. So borders, add right border, and its size should be, sorry, border dash r dash 4. If you need to have the top one, what should it be? And
also change the name of the classes. Top and bottom. So the last.
which one?
Head right border, sir. Change it to the
Okay, yeah.
top border.
Thank you. So this is top and this is
Bottom.
so if we refresh it, we have a, notice one more thing, once you add the functions into the class from the interface, this is not obligatory now to call those functions. For example, if I just need to have top and bottom borders, not the left and right, so I can just comment out these lines, left and right ones. So we will have just two types of borders now, top and bottom. Okay, no left and right. But for the code, you should have the functions. If somebody wants to use it here, you should have these in the border maker class. Is this clear now? What interfaces are? It's basically a contract between your classes, so that some functions must be implemented in those classes.
Which method should be implemented?
Yeah, it all depends upon your business logic then, but at least you can make it compulsory on a class to use those methods. So we will create another PHP class which extends this CSS class and intend to add borders. So we have already done this now, and we will make it italic. Okay, now the next one is we will create another class which extends the CSS class, name it CSS background. This class will be named CSS background. This will be abstract class. This is another terminology, sorry. Another class backgrounder will extend this class and implement the background functionality. Okay, let's do it. And what actually abstract class is. So we'll create another class and call it background. Or we'll have a name dot background abstract dot p, so that you know this is abstract class. Okay, background abstract, this is just like normal PHP classes. So class background abstract extends which one? CSS. That's it. Okay, technically this is not yet abstract class, but we will have to write abstract before it. Okay, like this. So abstract class can have any of the properties and methods you want, but if you just use this public, or maybe abstract public abstract function, and For example, add bg is a method. So this exactly works like interfaces. Okay, you can have the difference between an interface and abstract class is that you can have some implementation here. You can have you can define some functions for your use or whatever, but you can have something like this as well: public abstract function add bg, just like interfaces, but with the difference of this keyword abstract. Okay, another main difference between a normal class and an abstract class is that abstract class cannot be initialized. It can only be extended. It can, let me just type it here, abstract class cannot be initialized but only extended. Okay, so what does this mean? If I include this background abstract class in the index.php here, just like we have been, because we will need it, abstract background abstract .php, and if I just make a new abstract is equal to new what, background abstract, background, even VS Code is not allowing us to type hint it. And the markup is high, for example, whatever. Okay, so if I run this page now, even here in the VS Code it shows you cannot initiate abstract class. Okay, and if I just run this index page now, so you have an error, cannot initiate abstract class this. So prove that abstract classes cannot be initialized. So what can we do with them? Only just extend them. So we will create another class, and from the document this will be abstract class. Okay, we have named it differently, maybe background abstract. Okay, this will be abstract. Another class backgrounder will extend this class. Okay, so we will create another class and call it backgrounder. This is just this class, and what it should be extends background abstract. That's it. And since it is also extending CSS, so okay, here now again there is a red line below, and what it shows, classes are extended using the keyword extends. Okay, the second one, class backgrounder does not implement abstract methods. Which one it is? Add bg. In the abstract class we have used this function as add bg, just like interfaces. So now it is asking us that you are extending the background abstract class, this backgrounder, but you have not implemented the add bg method.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to do that. And how can we do that? Public function add bg and this. Okay, add bg should also accept some if we do it, for example, bg class, there is a red line here. Why?
Because it is not used.
Must be compatible with the bg method here. So we are not obeying the rule again. It has no parameter, and there we are using the parameter.
Yes,
So what it should do? We should add a bg class here, so that that error also is gone. Bg class it can be anything now. Okay, Got it? And again, now it is test because I consider this a very easy way for you to understand adding these CSS classes. So add bg will the method will be passed a CSS background Tailwind class, and what it should be added to this dot Tailwind classes array equals whatever is passed, so that is bg class. Okay. Now this is background is now normal class, which is extending the abstract class, and now I can include that backgrounder here as well. So here now we will change it to backgrounder with the high, or we can call it this is from background class. Okay. The next thing is we will add we will use prepare markup and then render it. Okay, sorry, not prepare markup. If we do so, for example this one, and then render, do you think we will have some markup there? We have, this is coming from background class, but it has no background. Why? Anybody?
Because we are not calling the method and passing the
background class. Good. And that should be done before the prepare markup, so that the array of Tailwind classes is populated. So new abstract, add bg, and some background class bg dash blue dash 200 maybe. So now we have a background class of this. Is this clear? And why not to just correct this spelling as well? Background class. So that's how abstract classes, you will see a lot of it in Drupal as well as other frameworks too, abstract classes and interfaces. The difference between the two is, if you just need to mention or use functions only from an interface, then you can just use interface. But if you need some extra functionality as well along with some contract functions, so you can use abstract classes for those. Okay, now there is one problem, and what that problem is, the last one here we have so far. What if we want to give container to this border class, bordered as well as background, bordered or background class? Since PHP is a single inheritance language, we will move the container class wrap container function to a PHP trait. Okay. So if let me go back to the container class. So this container class has one extra function, wrap output in container. Okay. So we want to give this wrapper to the currently created this background, blue background. We want to make it containered, so that it is contained in the class. One way is we can extend probably this class as well and use that function. But let us not do it, or maybe let us first do it this way, container class. So if I change the new abstract class, this one, background abstract extends CSS, what if we make it container class? If we extend the container class, so container class itself is being extended from the CSS class. Like CSS class is its grandparent.
Yes, exactly.
So what does this mean? Now we can use container classes, this wrap output container function.
Yes.
Okay, and where we will do it after before the render function. So here in index.php, here we will use that new abstract. Now we will have access to wrap output container. That's it. And if I refresh the page, now that is in the container.
Yes.
Just changing the parent of the abstract class we have changed because there was an extra class for that. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so but if I want something now I want to have these borders also. These borders in this class also. Okay, which class? The background one. Let me go to the code editor to explain this. This is really getting confusing, but you will have to watch this video a few times and practicing it so that you can grasp what we are doing. This sheet will help you. So if you reread this, if what we want to give container to this bordered or background class, since PHP is a single inheritance language, we will move the container class wrap container functions to a PHP trait. Actually, I want to explain what PHP trait is. So let me reword this. We can extend the container class rather than CSS class for abstract. Okay, so this we already have done. We had to change it a bit. I'll format it to italic. Now since PHP is a single inheritance language, what is single inheritance language? Anybody?
That it can inherit its parent only one time.
Kind of, or you can
One level.
extend. You can inherit only from one class at a time. Like we have inherited from container class or CSS class. So we cannot do something like. Let me just come to the abstract. Extends container class, CSS class, or something like more than one class. Okay, we can just extend one CSS class. One PHP class at a moment. Yeah, siblings can only inherit from its parent. Only one parent only. Okay, this is known as single inheritance language. So for example, I now want to add borders to this new abstract class. We already have this functionality. Do you agree? The backgrounder.
Yes.
Sorry, where were those interfaces? Yes.
Border interfaces.
In abstract background
Border
and
interfaces.
border interface. This is the border interface and the borders maker class. Actually, this is the border maker class, which has all the 4 methods. So we already have functionality of this method. Okay, we already have the functionality of these 4 methods. So ideally we should have like to extend the borders maker also, just like we are doing this. Extends comma borders maker. like this. Okay, so if PHP supported multiple inheritance, we could then use all the borders maker these functions for this also, but we cannot do that now because of the single inheritance. Okay, that's why there is a solution which is known as using traits. Using traits.
It's mean one class should be extended only one time.
No, one class can be extended by many other classes, but once the class is extending a class, it should only be have one parent. Like here I just showed you, if I want to extend this background abstract class, because I am now extending container class, and we have functionality here in the borders maker class. Okay, these 4 functions, I want to access these functions as well. So ideally I would have liked to extend this class, container class, so that I have all that functionality, and border class, for example, borders maker class. So now we could implement these functions defined here in this class as well, but this cannot happen. Only one parent can be extended. That's why there exists something called trait. So we will create a file and we will call it background trait.php. This is simple PHP function, sorry, PHP tags, then the keyword trait and the name of the file, trait, background trait. Okay, like this. Okay, so just like classes, we have trait now, and trait, let me move all these borders maker function to the trait at the moment, and I will copy it. Okay, so background trait, and I will paste all these functions here. So all those 4 functions are now inside this trait. This is just like class, but the keyword is trait. Okay, and the functions. Now I wanted to use it here in this new abstract class, so I will go to the new abstract class, which is basically the backgrounder. So if I come to the backgrounder class here, because it is extending the abstract class, and abstract class itself is extending container class, we want it to extend the. So what we can do is we can use trait here also and even there also. So inside the body, the class body, we'll use that background trait like this. Okay, use background trait. What should it do? It will bring all those. You can say it is just like including a file. So all the methods in that trait will be now inside the background this abstract class. And in the index page we need to include that trait. Background okay. So now we are including the background trait, and in the abstract class, because we could not extend more than one classes, we have used the background trait. And what is in the background trait? In the background trait we have all those functions which are in the this borders maker class. So now in this index.php, before the prepare markup, we can use new abstract and add bottom border. For example, if I have to or maybe the right border, this one. What should be a red border color? BG border dash right dash maybe 10. Okay, so we have now added a class add right border this. Why is now this function accessible to us?
Because we use a trait.
We use the trait. Well done. And why did we use trait? Because we could not extend more than one parent.
One class.
If you encounter while learning this error, it means the trait is being required by the class and it is below the included line. So we will move it to above, because this abstract class uses this trait. So we will just move it above the abstract, or maybe even more above. Now let me inspect if that class has been added. Border dash right, and maybe we also need to add the border color also. Is there any 10 in it or not?
Yes, sir. 10 is not there, sir.
Border dash what should be the color?
Red.
It has added this gray border. Why?
It is not taking the border color.
What's the border dash? Black. Okay, the color should be border dash. Okay, so we'll give Tailwind CSS border color class 900. Let us just refresh. Yes, it is working now. So excuse me. So we were able to get the functionality of the border classes into the abstract class, this one, via this use statement, and this is the name of the trait, and the trait has all those functions which we wanted in our function class, but because it was not part of the CSS class, so we could not extend more than one class. That's why traits are there in PHP, and we were able to get that those functions into abstract because of the trait. Hope this is clear now. So if I go to the sheet, make a trait for bordered methods to be used in abstract class. That's all. So we have done this as well. The next is we will do something called method chaining. If you remember, we did method chaining in JavaScript also. Do you remember?
Yes, sir.
So what's that?
So, once we declare a method and it has some functionality, so we are using that functionality in another method.
Okay, let's do it. Maybe you will revise those concepts as well from the JavaScript. So if you go to the index page, this one, you can see we are first using add bg, this, then add this on each one on different lines, okay, with the object. Similarly here with the object you are creating, we are using those methods again and again with on separate lines. So what we can do is, if I go to the CSS .php class here and examine what we are doing actually, if we run the prepare markup method, for example this one. So after the prepare markup method we are running the render method, for example this one, markup and then render. So let us start from the bottom. So if in the css.php, after we have done whatever we wanted to do, this one, this dot final markup, we are assigning the final markup variable, this one, this value, whatever it is. So at the last we will return $sign this. What this does is it returns when this function is when this method is run, it will return this object, this class actually, or the object of this class again. So once this is returned, we can access all the methods again. So for example this one, now after prepare markup, this function now returns, this does its work but returns this new borders again. So what we can do is, rather than going to the next line, we can directly use render here like this. So this is known as method chaining. Now this is not required. Okay, similarly add bottom border, add top border, all of these, add left border. If you go to, and these are coming from the border maker class, this one. So after each one, if we just return $sign this, I will just copy it everywhere. Like this. So now once these functions are called here, this one, add top border, add left border, whatever. So first time it is called, it will return this. So what we can do is, this becomes that object, and now we can access this method directly like this, and this also returns that object. So it means we can access the bottom one also like this. And at the end we need to run these two as well like this. This is quite a lot of chaining, but still, just for your understanding, this is good enough to know what actually is happening. So now we can delete all these lines, and just in one line add border, then this, then this, then this. You will see a lot of such stuff in professional programming. So if we refresh it, hopefully it will be working. Yes, it does. So all the functions are now in a chain. This is known as method chaining. Now let us come to our project. So if you go to the top of the page, we are including all the files we require, and also we there is a name. If we need to use maybe 2 or 3 files of the same name, because we cannot control names of the class in libraries on the web, or maybe even your own developers give the same names to classes. So in that case we can't use both classes on the same page. So for example, I have created a database.php file in the source directory. If I just open it, this is just barebone class with a construct method and hello from the root source database class. So this is just database class in this source. But if, for example, in large project there can be folders inside the source directory, if I create maybe a new folder called commerce, and if there is some database file here as well, I will create one more. And let me copy the code from here. Hello from the commerce database class. Okay, now on the index page I need to use these both of these classes. So let's try, because we need to solve a problem of naming conflicts for classes, and also that the new concepts we are going to learn will help us in auto loading as well. So first things first, let me just include both the classes. This is database.php in the source directory, and then we have another one which is database.php but in the commerce directory, and you can have many such files in our code base. Now if I create a db class object of new database like this, and if we refresh the page, so as we are including one file already, this one, if you go to the top of the page, this one, so this file also has database. Both the names are the same, but only the directories are different. So we are getting this error that we cannot have another class with the same. If I just change the name of the class to maybe database2, then things will be fine and error will go away. So this shows, because we cannot control people giving the same names to classes in different libraries on the web as well, so there has to be a solution, and that solution is known as namespaces. So what namespaces is, you in your class at the top of the page, we just add namespace keyword, and then it can be anything. So for example, let me give it Drupal, because we are from Drupal, so the namespace should be Drupal. So whatever is inside the source directory, like this source, we are giving it namespace of Drupal. But directories are only important if we are using autoloading. So maybe we can even give it Drupal app new or something like this as well. This is also a very valid name. No, it should not be a problem. But let us keep it as Drupal. So now, since we already are including the file database, and if we just change the part of code where we are initializing the database class, so now we'll make it /Drupal/database like this. So there is going to be no change, and things will be working the hello from the root source database class. So it's working fine. Now I need to do the same again, and I need to initialize this class. So I'll give it a namespace of Drupal/commerce/business or whatever, like this. In auto-loading, this should then be Drupal commerce, but we will learn that in a while. I just want to show you that even something like this outside of the folder structures can work for namespaces, and this is not important for auto-loading if you are not using auto-loading. Okay, so now if I need to initialize this class, what I need to do, I am already including this class as well here. So we will just use $db2, for example, is equal to new Drupal, then commerce, then business, and then the name of the class, which is database. So this way, though previously we were not able to initialize or even run the page, now both the databases are of the same name, but we are able to initialize them. And if I refresh the page, so hello from the commerce database class. This is known as namespacing. So we can precede the name of the class with this, but one of the shortcuts is that at the top of the page we can use statements, and the name of the class at the top of the page. So true park and just the name. So use this and then use Drupal database. So both the files are now in use, so we can just quickly remove the prefixes of the full path. But again, there is one problem now, because both the use statement and in database, so there again is the name clash. For that very purpose, you can use as and secondary name for the database, so it can be an alias for the class to initialize. So maybe we can call it CommerceDB, though the name of the class is database, but here in this page it will be referred to as CommerceDB. So now we can remove the prefix and name this class as CommerceDB, this one. So now both will have no effect, and it still is commerce database class, and this one is the root source class. So what we have done is we have given namespaces to the classes. This is the source database, so its namespace is Drupal, so it will be referred to as Drupal/database, and this one has Drupal Commerce Business, so it will be referred as Drupal Commerce Business Database. So these namespaces and the use statements go hand in hand. So whatever is the namespace, it is being preceded by followed by the name of the class. And notice there should be no brackets like this when you are using use, and then when you are using this database at the anywhere in the page, then you should use the brackets to initialize it. Similarly, here we have renamed the commerce class because both the use statements were ending in the same database name. That's why we had to create an alias for that. Okay, so that's how we should proceed in this course, as well as in your professional PHP development. You should be able to use namespaces and use statements like this. Now we are using a lot of required statements, and this should not be the case. There has to be a better solution. So for very small projects, we can use something like SPL _ autoload _ register. If all of our projects are in the same source directory like this, and then no inner, we though have created a inner folder, but right now to just use this as a just to let you know how this SPL load register function works. This is for autoloading classes. So it is passed, this function is passed an anonymous function, and that anonymous function basically has a parameter as an argument, which is class name. So whatever is whenever we need to we call or initialize a class and that is not included in the page, this function is run. So for example, if I have to just print class name and then exit the program. So for example, first time, if I have to use the CSS class and I'm not requiring it, okay, so here we are initializing the CSS class, but we are not requiring it, so this function will be run and the name of the class will be printed for us, this one, because we have just commented out the include function for the CSS file. So let us check what do we get now? I will refresh the page. It is saying on line 6. Let us comment out all these at the moment. So you can see it is outputting the class name, because this class is being initialized, and as soon as it knows that it has not been included, so this function runs, and this function we are just outputting the class name for now. So what we can do is via some logic, just we can include we can use the require function again here, require keyword, and the source directory, and then the class name concatenated, and then the dot PHP. So if we refresh the page, hopefully there won't be any. If we refresh the page, or maybe if the exit is after this CSS only, so now we don't have any error. But if I comment this line now, so we again have the CSS error for CSS class, include error for the CSS class. So now all of such files can be included via this way, but this is just for smaller applications. And if I just remove the exit line here, we have to use some if else statement, so that we can include the commerce directory as well, so that the database.php can also be included. So there is a better solution, and that is known as Composer Autoloading. I'm just going to remove this code now, and even remove this code, and we will now switch to Composer Autoloading. And Composer Autoloading is used in Drupal as well as in all other larger frameworks. And that's what we will be doing next. What we can do is go to your command prompt, and just like if you remember the npm init command, that is for JavaScript dependencies, so Composer is for PHP dependencies. Let me zoom it in. Okay, so I will just issue ddef, because we are in the ddef command. If you are using your own operating system or maybe any other environment, so you can just use that, but we are inside the ddef. So ddef Composer init. So it lets you ask what should be the name of your project, package name or whatever. So since we are from Drupal, so we will make it Drupal, the name of the course, which is DDCDP23, for example. Okay, so vendor is the name of the company, and name of the package is this DDCDP. This project is for DDCDP23, so that's why we have named it like this. Then description, sample to project for DDCDP23 students. Then author, so maybe I need to write my own name. Then minimum stability, maybe it is 1.0.0, or let us leave it blank for now. Package name, this is going to be a project. Maybe there are libraries, meta packages, and Composer plugins, so this is just a project. License, normally if we have to open source it is MIT. Define any dependencies, so right now we don't need any dependencies. Dependencies is, for example, if I need Symfony or any other libraries, so I can just type those here and it will download it for us, but right now we will just go on and use no. And there are dev dependencies also which are required during development, so we don't need any dependencies there as well. And this is known as PSR4 auto loading. This is what, that's why we are going to use the composer for it. So PSR4 is a standard of how to auto load your classes. We just checked the SPL auto register function, and it was quite hard for managing all those dependencies for us. So what this does is it will enable our environment to have this namespace, basic namespace for this. Normally companies use its name or app or whatever, so we can use app like this. So the source directory, this source directory would mean app, or maybe we can use simply we can use Drupal. So the source folder will mean Drupal, that's it. Normally you can see you will see people using app for this, but since we are from Drupal, so we will use Drupal. Okay. Or for now just go with this one, and it will ask you to generate it, and yes, generate it. So if we open the composer.json file now, it has created a composer.json file for us, this one, and it has a key autoload and the PSR4 sub key. This is a JSON file actually, and it is, the source folder is referring to Drupal DDCDP23. So if the namespace in a class is Drupal/DDCDP23/, it would mean source directory. Okay. Also in the vendor folder, it has created an autoload.php file. This is the autoload.php file which we need to include. If you go to the generated file, in the bottom of the screen you can see include the composer autoloader with required vendor autoload.php. So in your index page or whatever, wherever you are going to use this autoloader, you will include. Just now we need to comment this function, and here we will use require, and normally you need to use dir dot what's the vendor directory and then autoload.php. So vendor slash, we need this one, okay, vendor slash autoload load.php. That's it. So required the vendor autoload.php. This file which composer has created for us, autoload, it will now try to generate it will help us autoload all the classes we have. So now if we have in the source, we have the database class, and here the namespace is Drupal, but we need to change it to /DDCDP23. If you remember, in the composer.json file we have given it Drupal DDCDP23, which corresponds to the source directory. So any file which we now create inside this source directory should have, if it is in the root of the source, it should be this DDCD, okay, and the class is CDP. Now if I need to initialize that class, what I need to do is just db equals new database. but this is not the fully qualified known. It still doesn't know it which database file, so we can use the Drupal / DDCDP23 and then the database file. So do you think this will now be working? Because we have included the required vendor autoload file. Hello from the root source database class. Okay, so now it is auto loading it for us, that autoload.php file. So the namespaces, if you go back to database.php, the namespace is Drupal DDCDP. You can call it a folder name or something like this. So once you are going to use a class, you can use the fully qualified names like this. And since this is our own, so we can even use Drupal DDCDP23 and it will be working. Now there is one advantage of not using this prefix to the class once we use the use statement. Use Drupal / DDCDP23 and the name of the class, which is database. Then we don't need to use fully qualified. Let me delete this code now because it looks a lot clear. Use this, so then we can directly use the class name and it will be working now. The next is, if we come to the source commerce database class, we should have it the same name, namespace, and then inside this namespace which corresponds to the source folder, we should give it a commerce folder. Okay, so what does this mean? The namespace of this class is Drupal DDCDP23 and commerce. Okay, so in order to use this class, what should we do? You should go like this and then this namespace concatenated with the name of the database. So if I have to initialize this class, what I can do is use Drupal / DDCDP, and it knows that I needed to include it. So this Drupal DDCDP commerce and database. Now this is a collision. If I hover over it, cannot use Drupal this as database because the name is already in use, because both the classes are of the same name and though they are from different namespaces, but the names are the same. That's why the script doesn't know which one we want to initialize. So again here, what should we do? As commerce DB, something like this. Okay, now if I need to initialize the second one, what should I do? Commerce DB equals new what? Commerce DB. Here we have renamed the commerce class. That's it. And you can see hello from the commerce database class. Now as a PHP developer into OOP, what should be your role? In subfolders or wherever you are creating a class, you should be giving the proper namespace, and wherever you are you need to use them, you will have to forget about the includes. That autoload function will do it for you. You just need to put the folder classes into their respective folders, give the proper namespace, and then you make the use statements like this, and they will be automatically included. So let us practice it again, maybe in the university folder, and in the undergraduate we also need to include another class from here. We need to include a class from here, and maybe we call it news.php. Okay, so we will create this file. We will open tags, PHP tags. Class news, should have a constructor. It will be just printing hello from news in undergrad. Okay, what should be the namespace of this news class? What should be the namespace? We are inside the source, then the university.
The namespace will be Drupal DDCDP slash
Namespace
Drupal
should be Drupal.
DDCDP
Here it is. Drupal. Then university.
and then
It's yes, university.
and then
Undergrad.
news.php.
Okay. So when you are defining the namespace, you don't include. You just include the folder name, not the class name. But when you are going to use it, then you will have to use include the news also. So the namespace is Drupal this, and the class is this news. So in index.php, if I have to, there are two ways now. If I create a news object and new news class like this, so the your code editors now, if it has been properly set up for auto loading, it will automatically include the namespace for you. Use Drupal this and the news class, and here we can new it and refresh. Found in index 2. Maybe we have given it the wrong. See, undergrad news online 2 115.
Undergrad university have professor folder also.
When did we create it? I just don't remember. Undergrad, university, and then university has these two.
Professor.
So let us change that undergrad to university slash professor like this, and in the we will have to professor. University professor undergrad news. This is something wrong with the path basically. Okay, university just
Professors. Yes.
professors, and the name should also be professors, the namespace, sorry. Hopefully it will be now working. So hello from news in undergraduate. Okay, so your workflow will be, let me just comment it out. Create any class in a directory inside src, okay, folder. Give it a namespace up to the folder, not class name included. And when you have to initialize it, use statement with the path to class and the class name. So just these are just three steps. So for example, Now in the commerce folder, in the sales, I need to create a class. Just another practice. It will be sales.php, for example. PHP. Okay, what should be the namespace? Help me with this, Shabas. Drupal slash DDCDP23 slash commerce. Even it is helping you, your editor. Sales, commerce and sales. Then yes, that's enough. Not the name of the class. Commerce source. So this is namespace Drupal DDCDP23. Then the folder name is commerce, then sales. Okay, so here we will create class sales, and that's it. Let us copy just the function from here. Hello from sales. Okay, so if we have to now initialize it, what we will do? Notice the use here automatically. Okay, so sales equals new sales. Drupal, it has used the use for us. Drupal DDCDP23 commerce sales and the name of the sales class. So here we can now use it automatically, and if there is no BR tag between the outputs, that's why. So this is hello from sales. Is this clear now?
Yes.
Okay, there is one more addition to this lecture, and that is for some reasons. For example, if you go to the same class, the sales class, and you already have been using PDO. So if I need to create a new instance of PDO, we will study some more techniques called dependency injection and all. But if we have to use, for example, PDO object is equal to new, you already know what is PDO. Okay, so PDO, and what are we going to pass it? Some string, whatever it is, DSN for database connectivity. Then the username and password. This is the PDO native PDO class. So if we refresh the page, we will get an error, hopefully. And yes, Drupal DDCDP commerce says PDO not found. What does this mean? It actually, because we are in the namespace this, okay, we are in the namespace this, so this PDO assumes that this class, if we for example add a new class, and let me just add it. If we add a class here, PDO.php inside this sales folder, so this error will go away, because this now assumes that this class exists within the same namespace. And so you can examine the error, Drupal this PDO not found. It thinks that within the same folder there is a class known as PDO, but we want to use the PDO from the basic PHP, the core PHP for PDO objects. So if you have to use such classes from PHP or some other library, you will have to use this \PDO. Now it will make it part of the database connectivity class. So at least that this, now we don't have any connection, that's why there still will be error, but at least the class not found error won't be there. So if you have to use native PHP classes from within your own classes, you will have to use \. And in order to if you want not to use this, so you will have to use the use statement and then the PDO. Okay, like this. Now you don't need to use the slash here. So now your class knows that this PDO is not something which should be from my folder. It is the native PHP folder. Is this clear? Okay, one more thing. Let us try something, because now we have employed auto loading of classes via Composer, and one of the advantages of Composer is to install third-party libraries for you, PHP libraries for you. Okay, so let us search some library which may help us for something. So maybe just like npm packages, for PHP there is packagist. You might have heard of it, packagist. Rather than writing your own classes, there are thousands of libraries here. So maybe for lorem ipsum, maybe if you can even go for stars and then the counts, it has been downloaded. So for example, this is a library. I have never used it myself, but let us try. So Josh-tronic, for example, if you are going to contribute something to the PHP community, just like Composer asked us for your vendor name, and so we gave it Drupak / DDCDP23. That's why if you are, for example, Afaq is going to contribute something, so it will be Afaq / whatever library he has created. So lorem ipsum generated in PHP without dependencies. What we can do is, the preferred installation method via Composer is this. If you use this in the require and run Composer update, it will download it for us. Okay, so let's do it. Or maybe if we try something like this and run the command ddef composer this, and before this we can use require, so it automatically will do that for us. ddef composer require this, and if I open the composer.json file here right now, in the require there is nothing. Okay, if I issue this command, so it says it is downloading this and it is installing it, and it has done so. And if I go to the composer.json file, now this has been downloaded for us automatically. So in order to install some package, download some library, what you need to do is just run this command, composer require, and the name of the vendor and the name of the library. And this is what we will do to download Drupal modules also, or Symfony packages, all those. Okay, so this is something which you will get used to. Now it has been installed in the vendor directory. If you go to vendor, and you can see now there is a folder, this Josh-tronic, and it has all the required files, whatever it is. Okay, now what we need to do is, we just need to use these classes. So I don't need to know where the classes are. It has its own source directory and then this. Okay, but auto loading will help us with this. So for example, here I need to initialize this and run something. Once this is included, libsum is equal to new this lorem ipsum, whatever. I will just run this. Okay, so in the index2.php we have this. Let's check if it is working fine. Generating words, echo this word, 5 words sentence, maybe paragraphs, this one, echoing 5 paragraphs, this, and refresh. Okay, what this means is, okay, let us not use PDF a video because it is throwing some error. We'll comment this line out. That was just to show you that if you have to use the video or something like that from the core PHP, you should be using backslash. So it's working fine. It has created 5 paragraphs for us, and maybe okay, can anybody tell me what is this line?
This is the namespace.
Very good. So we have been using this. If for example this application which we have built, if we contribute it, somebody downloads it, so what should be there? Drupal/DDCDP. But here, so what we can do is, if I just remove this and use this /lorem ipsum. Like this. So now I don't need to have the and you can go through documentation of this, maybe with HTML tags, paragraphs, maybe this one. Okay, if I need to print 10 paragraphs, echo ellipsum paragraphs 3p. So now these are 3 sample paragraphs. If I make it 10, so there will be 10 paragraphs. So what advantage do you see in using object oriented PHP and then the packages and the composer workflow which we have used now? We just don't need to know how the logic of the classes is. We just need to include them. And previously you have checked how hard it was to include classes from different folders, right? So the composer autoloader helps us include classes automatically. It knows this is a class from this library, so it uses this and all those, and then the files are automatically autoloaded wherever they are used. We don't need to worry about loading of classes. All those includes. This is hopefully clear. We will continue with the object oriented programming, some techniques in the next lecture. So see you then. Thank you very much. So autoloading now works for all the code we have written in index2.php. Now we let us switch back to our application, and if I refresh the page, index.php, so it has all the errors because we have removed the includes as well as the SP register function from it. So let's include, make it work with the autoload composer autoload as well. So we will copy the autoload require to the index.php function, index.php page, sorry. And if I refresh the page, still we will have errors because we have not given namespaces to the classes we have. So if I go to the source directory, and all of these classes need namespaces. It's Drupal, we had made it Drupal, but it should be Drupal-DDCDP23, because in composers.json file we have given this PSR key. So let us change all of those files with the namespace. we already have it in the database file, and then this border maker class, this one, even we need to give it to interfaces as and the trait. Or maybe if we have any other classes in these directories, so it will be for example, if in the graduate or undergraduate we have news.p, we already have given it the namespace followed by this, so that doesn't need. But if we have any new classes, so it should be Drupal, DDCDP, professors, and then undergraduate. So apparently things look fine. Let us refresh the page now. If the namespaces have been given the proper way, hopefully we'll be able to see our. So refreshing the page, we are able to get see our project back. One thing, we have created database classes in this root source directory, this one, which is working fine. I have initialized it here, new database, and included the use statement, the corresponding use statement here. Then we have a secondary source commerce directory, and we have a database.php file here as well. But intentionally we have an extra last part of the namespace. Just for a demo, I had created this one extra part of the namespace, which is outside the folder, inside the folder commerce, but we don't have that folder, and the file actually is inside, directly inside the commerce folder. So if I include it, if I go to index.php and enable its new statement as well, so we will have an error of class not found. This is because it is accepting the database class inside the commerce, because the namespace of it shows so, and the file is the namespace actually, if I go to the database.php, it is not commerce. So if I change it to commerce, now if I refresh the page, it will be working, hello from commerce database class. So namespaces and autoloading go side by side in PHP OOP development. You need to have folder based namespaces, and then composer based PSR for autoloading, and your application will be working fine, and classes will be getting autoloaded automatically. Thank you very much. See you next time.